Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I wanted to talk about real quick um, an ideology that is becoming more and more um, prominent. Um, it's an ideology that you find pushed oftentimes in academia, unfortunately, and it's called moral relativism. The basis of moral relativism is that there is no universal source or adjudicator of morality, that all morality is relative to the individual, or early on, it used to say that it was relative to the society and the culture in which the people lived. Just like anything else, ideologies evolve, either for the good or for the bad. So, moral relativism today is slightly different from what it was in its origins. Now, its origins are from the Greeks. So, when we talk about the source of something, you know, as a Muslim, our moral compass is governed by the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad, alayhi salatu wassalam. That is our metric. That is our guide. The Quran and the Sunnah set our boundaries and our parameters, and it's from now until the day of judgment. But with man-made ideologies, oftentimes the goalposts move to fit, oftentimes, the moral decay of the society. Therefore, or thereby rather, being able to justify more deviance, more deviance. When I was in college, when I was doing my undergrad degree, I had a conversation, or I was privy to a conversation, that the position was being posited that when you talk about LBGTQ, and according to the Abrahamic religions, LBGTQ is considered deviant. This is not me saying it. This is what the Abrahamic religions say. Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. They say that LBGTQ, man marrying a man, woman marrying a woman, is a form of sexual deviance. So, as a society, if you normalize one form of sexual deviancy, then you open the door to normalize all forms of sexual deviancy. If the society is operating off of moral relativism, off the ideology of moral relativism that says morality is relative to each individual determines for themselves what is moral and what is immoral, that there is no one universal source for morality. So if a person decides they want to marry their dog or marry their horse and have relations with these animals, or if they want to mess with children, or if they want to kill people or rob and steal or whatever form of deviance, because deviance has many, many different faces, and that person is operating by moral relativism, and moral relativism is what the society is operating on, then you have total chaos, because there is no accountability with moral relativism. You can't hold someone accountable for what they do if morality does not have a source or come from a source bigger than the society itself. How is there accountability if each person, and it's accepted that each person can define for themselves what is moral, what is not? How do you hold people accountable for what they do? If a person is or operates under this ideology, they should never get mad or have a problem if somebody does them dirty, if somebody robs them, if somebody steals from them, if somebody kills a family member, If somebody steals their car, if somebody rapes them, if somebody does this, that, or the other, under moral relativism, you should never get mad. They should never have an issue with that because obviously whoever did it felt that it was within their moral circle to be able to do it. When you understand moral relativism, then you understand that it's chaotic. And a healthy, vibrant, balanced society cannot operate off of chaos. For those of us who have God consciousness, we understand that the Creator is organized. He creates and gives things organization. He gives things purpose. The planets, the stars, the plants, the insects, the water, everything serves a purpose. Everything operates within parameters. You don't see the planets crashing into each other. You don't see, birds trying to be lions and things like this. Everything has a purpose. Everything is given order. So for a person who's God conscious, how can everything in creation have design, intelligent design, have order, have purpose, serving that purpose, but humanity is just told, figure it out on your own, and anything you do is okay? How does that work? How do you reconcile all of creation and humanity? If all of creation is given order and purpose, why wouldn't humanity be given the same thing? Help me to understand this. How does a person operate under moral relativism and be God conscious at the same time? For a person who is an antitheist, a person who doesn't have a belief in God, that's a different conversation. We first have to bring them to believe that there's a creator. Again, different conversation. But when we talk about a person or a society that claims to be God conscious, we live in America, this claims to be a Judaic Christian society, so there has to be or should be some level of God consciousness. How do we rectify operating under moral relativism? How do we justify deviance in all of its many forms by saying that we can't really judge this, that, or the third? It's okay for this to happen and that to happen. But when you do that, when you operate, then you open up the door for every other form of deviance to come through that same door, ride the coattails of the deviance that came before it, using the same argument. Well, this is just how we are. This is how we naturally are made. So if we're naturally created this way, how can you tell me that I can't, marry that 3-year-old, or that I can't play with that baby, or that I can't marry my horse, or that I can't rob that bank? I'm hungry. I need to get money. So I need to rob a bank. I need to steal from people. I need to hurt people. And morally, that's within my guidelines to do that. But under moral relativism, shut up. You can't say anything. A little historical background on moral relativism. I'm going to read this to you. Though moral relativism did not become prominent or become a prominent topic in philosophy or elsewhere until the 12th century, it has ancient origins in the classical Greek world. Okay, so that right there tells you it's man-made. Right there tells you it's man-made. Its origin is in the classical Greek world. Both the historian, his name is Herodotus, and the sophist Pythagoras appear to endorse some form of relativism. And Plato attached himself to that as well. Among the ancient Greek philosophers, moral diversity was widely acknowledged. But the more common non-objectivist reaction was moral skepticism. Moral skepticism and moral relativism are different. Um, the view that there is no moral knowledge in this position of the Pythagorean skeptic, his name is Sextus Empiricus. Rather, that moral relativism, the view that moral truth or justification is relative to a culture or society. This pattern continued through most of the history of Western philosophy. There were certainly occasional discussions of moral disagreement amongst some of the different intellects of these times. These discussions pertain to moral objectivity, but moral relativism as a thesis explicitly distinguished from moral skepticism ordinarily was not in focus. Prior to the 12th century, moral philosophers did not generally feel obliged to defend a position on moral relativism. So moral relativism, there is a precursor to moral relativism. You have moral skepticism, you have moral objectivism, you have precursors. So this ideology of moral relativism, which is what we're dealing with now, morphed from other ideologies. The whole point is all of that stuff is man-made, and the origin of it comes from the Greeks. It was adopted by Western philosophy. Through the centuries, it has evolved and morphed to the standard or the era that it's in, like right now. So moral relativism has evolved to be able to deal with contemporary issues that we deal with now. The point of it is that moral relativism is not from the creator. The creator did not give us moral relativism, moral skepticism, moral objectivism as a form of guiding our moral compass as a human society. It came, or its origin is from the Greeks. It has been accepted within Western philosophy, and it has morphed from era to era. That's moral relativism. Now, when you look at the moral compass in the Abrahamic religions, you will find that they are all pretty much in line. The moral compass. What also needs to be understood is that the creator, from an Islamic perspective, I am a Muslim, sent to each society a messenger. And that messenger had a message that was specific to those people. There you will find variance. But what you do find in alignment are the major: murder is wrong, rape is wrong, adultery is wrong, stealing is wrong. We have to understand that there is obviously context to everything. Everything needs to be understood within context. But the point is that the moral compass in all of the Abrahamic religions, you will see similarities. You don't find this moral relativism. Again, the origin of moral relativism began with the Greeks. And from the Greeks, the ideology changed. It changed. It's not the same. When we think about, and I think I said this before, but I'm going to reiterate it. When we look at how the creator operates, he created the sun, the moon, the stars, and they all do their thing, and they don't crash into each other. They don't go off of their orbit. They don't float off into space. They're given parameter, and they're given purpose, and they do what they're supposed to do. Why do we not believe that the creator would give humans that same thing? Sometimes you'll hear people say, well, I'm not going to submit to any religion because it's all man-made. But when you ask them, what is your guiding ideology? What is your, like, where do you get, how do you understand morality? How do you understand creation? You come to find it almost 100% comes from some culture, and it's man-made. Name me one ideology that's not man-made, that doesn't have man in it, conveying it, teaching it, pushing it, promoting it. Name me one. The creator, Islamically, and from Christianity, and from Judaism, he has prophets and messengers that he conveys information to them, and their job is to convey that information to humanity. That's how that works. Now, one thing that I'll say before I go that separates Islam from Christianity and Judaism is the preservation of the revelation. The language that the Injil, or the Gospels given to Jesus, and the Torah given to Musa, and those given to the Psalms of David and all of that stuff, the language that those were revealed in are basically dead languages. They're dead languages. Nobody speaks the Latin. Nobody speaks the Aramaic Hebrew. Nobody, speaks the ancient Greece, or ancient Greek rather. Nobody speaks that. The Quran is a living language. The Arabic, the Fusha, which is the classical Arabic. That's one of the ways that the Quran is protected and preserved. The language never dies. The book itself is committed to memory by millions and millions and millions of people. If you took every Bible and every Torah and put it on a rocket and sent it to the moon, people they'd be lost, because that book is not memorized in its original language with the context like the Quran is. The Quran is memorized by millions of people from the first page to the last page. It's committed to memory in its entirety. So even if the book was destroyed or banned off of the earth, it would not die, because it's in the hearts and the minds of millions and millions and millions of people. That book can always be recreated, and not just be recreated, but be verified, because there's millions of people that can look at and say this, that, and the other, this is wrong, this needs to be here, this is it, and it's confirmed. The Quran is going nowhere. It's the language of the book is a living language. Millions of people speak the classical Fusha Arabic, and millions have committed that book to memory. So the physical book is not, I don't want to say it's not important, because it is, but it's not the only form of preservation. It's not the only form of preservation. And Allah tells us in the Quran that it will be preserved until Yom Al-Qiyamah, which is the day of judgment. So it's going nowhere. So the preservation of it through the memorization of millions and millions and millions of people is one of the main forms of preservation of the book. And that book sets our moral compass. It sets our guidelines for what we can and what we cannot do, and produces a cohesive, healthy, balanced society if practiced properly. It gives the community efficacy, and it's the binding glue that binds a society together. Does moral relativism do that? Does moral relativism bind a society? And if you say yes, then I ask you to point the society to me that's based on moral relativism, that has a communal self-efficacy that's healthy and balanced and just. Moral relativism, 100% I believe, is from the shaitan. because it's the opposite of what the Creator has informed us to do and how to live our life. The Creator gives us the guidelines and parameters for right, wrong, what's good, what's bad, what's halal, what's haram. The devil's job is to misguide and mislead as many people as he can with these various ideologies and these various theories and these various deviant ways of thinking, to get as many people to submit to that and pull them away from the Creator. Moral relativism is not from the Creator. It's man-made. Its origins are with the Greeks. So how do we submit to that? How do we accept that or take that as a way to govern our morality in our life? I guide everyone. I implore everyone to read the Quran. Get your hands on the Quran. Read it with an open heart and an open mind. Don't go into it thinking, well, I'm going to prove this wrong. Read it with an open heart and an open mind. I'll leave it there. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.